Hi, I'm Jennifer Kent, Senior Director of Research at Parks Associates, ready to start our next session here. We have a great panel of experts from across the security and smart home spaces to talk about DIY and the impact of DIY solutions and services on the residential security and smart home market. So I'd like to start by having each of the speakers introduce themselves and their companies, and then we'll get going on our topics. So I'd like to start with Mark Burson with a nice group. If you could go ahead and introduce yourself and your company.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. My name is Mark Burson. I'm the Vice President of Marketing and Product Management with NICE in North America. I joined the company last year in December of 2019 out of a passion that I have for smart home and IoT devices. And I'm responsible for 3 unique brands as well as the convergence strategy in North America for NICE, Abode, and High Security. But globally, we also include Alero and Fabaro brands in our portfolio. And as a preeminent player in smart home and building automation, NICE is really focused on simplifying everyday movements. And we do that by looking at day-to-day gestures and interactions, and then building products and services to provide seamless integrations to improve the quality of life. So from a DIY smart security brand like Abode to a professionally installed smart home system such as Fabaro and NICE, we provide solutions that meet the vast needs of our customers. Additionally, through our high security brand, we offer what we call hostile vehicle mitigation or anti-terrorist barriers. So we're really focused on perimeter security in that space.
Thank you, Mark, very much for that introduction. Next, I'd like to bring in Mike Harris from Ring.
Hi, this is Mike Harris. I'm with Ring, video doorbell company that everybody I think knows. I'm part of Amazon, have been part of Amazon for about 2.5 years now. Within Ring, I'm responsible for the Ring Alarm product line. So all the engineering, product, and operations of Ring Alarm, our security system for inside the home. With that, I'll pass it on to the next presenter.
Thanks everyone for joining the discussion today. Thanks to Parks Associates for keeping this going. And especially the sponsors for sponsoring this in spite of being remote. Hopefully we can all be together again next year. So my name is Chris Johnson. I was the founder and president of LiveWatch. We were arguably the pioneer of DIY home security. We started over 15 years ago. So I've seen a lot of change, not only in the home security and smart home space, but specifically in DIY. And in fact, many years ago, we stopped counting the number of competitors that came and went. Anyway, we ultimately sold the business to Brinks a few years ago, where I stayed on as the president of our direct-to-consumer division and our chief strategy officer. In fact, my role with Brinks just changed this month. I'm transitioning to a new role as an advisor to the CEO. And we brought on a new chief product and strategy officer, Min Kang. She's from Samsung. So we're excited to have her as a new addition to the industry. For myself, I will start focusing on new opportunities and strategies in the connected home space, both at Brinks and outside of Brinks. Brinks is unique because it is a national provider offering both in-home and DIY installation. We were able to leverage those DIY capabilities during COVID, for example, but we're also actively working to expand our smart home capabilities here at what I would say is the beginning of a transformation that's underway to support both of our direct-to-consumer and dealer partners. So happy to be here with the panel of industry experts. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Chris, and thanks again for joining us and for that great context on your role at Brinks there. Next, I'd like to bring in Brett Juergens from Notion.
Hey everybody, this is Brett. Thanks for having me. I'm one of the 2 co-founders and the CEO of Notion. We were recently acquired by Comcast just this year to really expand some of the things that they're doing on the DIY security side. I think Notion is unique in the sense that we offer DIY home security with some very easy to install kind of innovative hardware technologies, but we're also bringing insurance and services into the mix. Really trying to focus on kind of a complete platform of home and property protection beyond just kind of devices and what we would think of as traditional monitored security. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the talk.
Matt, come on and tell us a little bit about yourself and about SimpliSafe.
Excellent. Thanks so much for having us, Jen, and thank you all for joining, particularly those observing Veterans Day. Just wanted to quickly thank you for your service. Matt Wolf, I head business development and partnerships for SimpliSafe. We're a smart home security company with a singular focus, which is making home a safe and secure place for everyone. We've pioneered an approach over the past 10 years, that makes it possible for anyone that wants peace of mind to be able to get it easily at a reasonable cost without any hassle. This approach involves creating our own user-friendly and intuitive products and services that offer comprehensive protection against perils like theft, leaks, frozen pipes, and fire without locking customers into a long-term contract for monitoring. Customers can select among 15 SimpliSafe designed sensors and devices and cameras to configure a system that is shipped for free and works and protects right out of the box. Once installed, customers can enjoy the highest rated home security mobile app in the Apple App Store that SimpliSafe engineers designed. And whenever they choose, they can subscribe to professional monitoring among one of our plans that we offer. Our approach has been very well received over the past decade, as SimpliSafe now protects over 3 million Americans, as well as over 100,000 businesses of various sizes. And in these uniquely challenging times, this year, we've seen a really strong and heightened demand for our services. My team at SimpliSafe is focused on cultivating partnerships that expand the universe of customers that choose home security, as well as developing new opportunities for customers to get more value out of our services. And great to be here, and it was great to see so many of our partners trying to participate today, and hopefully they'll get to listen to the recording as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Matt, for that introduction. Thank you all for being here. I'd love to just start with the fact that over the past 5 years, there has been really an explosion of home security options, right, that consumers can choose from self-install, self-monitoring, traditional, of course, pro install, pro monitoring, even smart home devices that may compete with to an extent or be a proxy for providing consumers that security, that peace of mind. So I'd love to understand fundamentally how you see the change in this market and what this real kind of dynamic shift in what has been a pretty static market before that really means. And let's start with Mike.
Yeah, I think we're going through a bit of a transition, but really at the core of it, it's about offering consumers choice, giving them a number of ways to bring the technology that can make them feel safe and secure into their homes. For us, with Ring, we really started as a DIY company, but we've extended beyond that. So now you can get professional installers to come into your home. There's a variety of different ways that you can bring Ring to your home, whether that starts at the front door, starts at the curb with, smart lighting and our camera products, or all the way into the, security, system that's inside the home itself. At the end of the day, I think Raya said it well, there's the installation choice, but then there's ultimately what you use the product for afterwards, and how, whether you choose to monitor it yourself or ultimately have that, trusted third party who's monitoring it in case, you're not able to get to your phone or you need that person to talk to about the problem that you're having. So I think for us, it really starts and ends with consumer choice.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So Matt, maybe same question to you, and I'd love to kind of take one of the key questions of the industry kind of head on. Do offerings like yours, right, represent an expansion in the market for home security? You're looking at new customers, or are you really competing head to head with the more traditional approach to the home security market?
Yeah, I think to go back to the slide you shared earlier, I definitely think it's the egg is getting bigger, and it's not that scary shark eating the seagull. So I think it is expanding, the market. More than half our customers at SimpliSafe are new to the home security category, and it's not simply swapping out a Brinks or an ADT sign for a SimpliSafe sign. Just because consumers have a willingness to order and install products independently, it doesn't mean they want the responsibility of when an alarm gets triggered to be on them. With that said, I do think DIY might mean an erosion for some of the previous pro monitoring business models. So if you think of that Siegel, having customers sign long-term contracts, it might be that Siegel, having people pay high monthly monitoring fees to have that pro monitoring is like that Siegel. And I think, as you see new entrances come into the market, Ring recently and ADT, Blue, you're seeing them adopt those models with more flexibility, which I think is really key. I think, convenience, affordability, and flexibility really is what's driving the growth. And I think will continue to drive the growth, as long as the industry also keeps maintaining a focus on data security and privacy, and doing a good job of making sure, as Ray mentioned, data is going to be important, to what they're doing and other people are doing. But, it really will be key that we keep that focus on consumer privacy to keep growing and keep expanding the market.
Yeah, absolutely. Brett, to you, as you have been developing your solution, and now, as you mentioned, you're, part of the Comcast group, which is an interesting, viewpoint from your path across the industry. What have the changes over the past 5 years, mean for you? And what do you think is really driving the move to DIY or motivating consumers to select DIY options?
Yeah, I think I'd echo what the previous two just said to some degree. I just, the technology has gotten inexpensive enough, works well enough, is easy enough to install, that a lot more people are diving into the space as users. I do think that smart speakers and those types of devices have kind of made the tide rise, if you will. Easy to install smart speaker might start to get people comfortable with the fact that now they could install a sensor, now they can install a camera. So I think you have a lot of sort of macro trends from just an IoT perspective. They're helping out the situation. I think other things that are happening as well are just unique business models and unique partnerships. I mean, that's one of the main themes of some of the topics covered by this event overall. And I think when you look at other companies that are involved in home ownership, if you will, home inspection companies, mortgage companies, insurance companies, and then services companies who do preventive maintenance and then also come in and fix things when those things are done. A lot of the time we spend at Notion is trying to bring those things together. I think there's the home security piece that we're used to in terms of what home security is defined as. And I think what's happening now that you have these technologies converging with these other service and product companies, you actually have new models and new revenue streams that are starting to really be interesting connectors for people. They're learning about security during a home inspection, maybe, or during a mortgage or insurance purchase up front. They may not have been moving, or they may have, haven't moved homes for 5 to 7 years. About the typical person moves every 7 years. Well, if you haven't moved for 7 years ago in this space is quite a while ago, in terms of where the technology and the pricing and the quality has gotten. So I just think that there's some dynamics where you're starting to see some interesting things come together as well.
Yeah, since, let me follow up there, since you were talking so much about the services and how Notion really is leaning into different unique partnerships with different service providers to provide an additional layer of value there. What types of home services are you seeing being particularly attractive to bundle with home automation devices, smart home devices? What are more maybe long-term bets, right? What do you think are kind of the services that rise to the top there?
I mean, I think an obvious one that we think about all day long, given how many insurance partnerships we have, is water related. So when you think about home security, you think about fire and theft. At least I think most people do. We're really working down a path where dispatch can be provided for any peril that a home may have. And you obviously wouldn't send a policeman to your home if there's a water leak, but you would want to send a plumber. So for the last about year and a half, we and some other companies are doing this too, which I think is awesome. We've had an instant plumber connect in our mobile app with Home Advisor. So you can instantly click a button. If you have a water leak, highly rated and available plumber can contact you immediately. We really want to take that kind of thing to the next level. And when we think about home automation and its connection to security, we really just think about security as anything that could go wrong, and not just the life-threatening events, but a lot of the things that actually happen a lot more often, right? Frozen pipes and water leaks are pretty high on that list. So that's one kind of easy example to provide. But I think that there's other types of information that can start to be combined together, and this goes back to the data conversation. Can every company on this phone call start to provide data about weather and about the severity of hail in a specific area, and the possibility of getting insurance companies and repairmen involved to fix roofs, to move cars inside before it hails? I mean, the opportunities we have once we connect to your home with a primary use case of home security, that expansion of what the definition of security means, I think is a really fun area, kind of looking out at the next 3 to 5 years in this space that I also think will drive more adoption and actually enlarge the pie here.
Yeah, absolutely. Really interesting. Well, let me bring Mark in. So Mark, you mentioned about how under the NICE group, you've assembled all these different brands that kind of represent security or peace of mind, home automation, perimeter, premise security in different ways. How do you differentiate between a DIY versus a more professional type solution for the customer? How do you message how those solutions are different or reach the different buyers? How can consumers really understand what the differences are there?
For NICE, really, the way that we differentiate, it's all about complexity and function. So for the DIY side of the business, like brands like Abode, the product and services in general just need to be completely simple to install, program, and use. Our professional offerings from NICE and Fabaro, they're a little bit more sophisticated. So the question for us really becomes, do the users want a security system that can be installed in under an hour that also has smart home functionality, or do they want a fully integrated smart home that blends into the home itself and can perform security functions? So, we look at this from a range, from the whole range of our portfolio, from the perimeter, which is the gate side of the business, to the garage door openers, and then into the home, and with the blinds and awning automation. And we're able to really just work with the customer to identify what their needs actually are, and how sophisticated of a solution that they're really looking for.
Bit about the actual purchase process there for the consumer. Do you sometimes have folks who come maybe to one brand, right, thinking that they want this, but they're really actually someone who needs the professional install, and you can kind of move them up the chain there? Or really are your different brands kind of identifying their customer set and going after the segment that makes sense for that product offering?
Yeah, that's a great question. With a business like ours, we have a lot of brands that overlap. And so if you look at it from the perspective of Abode and Fabaro, you see an overlap of customers, specifically as we start to get into the functionality. But we really, help our customers by asking questions. And most people, they know what they want, but they might not know exactly how to accomplish it or even where to start. So we like to ask questions and probe to help guide someone through to what their answers suggest they need. And we found that on the DIY side, we're definitely able to build more precise bundles while also helping customers save money by not adding things that they don't need or adding in any hidden cost. It's all transparent upfront, and that really helps to build more trust and loyalty between us and our customers. Sometimes I think, though, that you have a user that ends up answering the questions in a way and is guided into a particular bundle or option that does want something more. And so when they're looking for more functionality, that's when we start to see them asking more questions or asking for specific sensors or things like that, because they have a more clear understanding and idea of what they're looking to do. And that's when we would move them over into NICE or Fabaro.
Chris, same thought to you. Thanks, Mark. when you're thinking about differentiating products, right, and services, do you see the DIY customers as a different customer than the pro customer? How do you really differentiate what pro offers, for instance, right? And do customers come in with different expectations if they're looking for something that's a little bit more DIY versus the full professional type system?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I mean, in the previous presentation, I think that Parks Associates showed the data that 40% of dealers are doing DIY, and the answer was because the consumer was demanding that, or there was an expectation. But I think the further question is why, right? So the consumer's demanding it. I agree with Mark. I think they know what they want to accomplish, but it's up to us to really simplify the solution. And I think it's an oversimplification to say it's just about the installation, because when you think about DIY, it's not only the initial installation, but it's ongoing maintenance and use of the product. And so I really think that we have to take a very strict approach as an industry about what we're referring to as DIY, and it's a bit of a misnomer because some DIY systems are self-monitored and others are pro-monitored, and I think everyone's making different distinctions. But when you talk about these market segmentations, I mean, there are some really clear ones. For example, if somebody wants outdoor cameras, generally speaking, outdoor cameras are not suitable, in my opinion, for a DIY installation, at least not yet. I think we'll get there. But there's also, as Mark mentioned, a question of fun. And if they want a very simple solution, a single point solution or an expanded solution that can protect their home when they're home or away, or stay connected through video, that's one thing. But if they really want a true home integration, a lot of that is during the setup and activation process. It's not necessarily the hardware that I install. The worst thing that we can do is go in and install a system with all these capabilities and then expect the end user to then set up all the rules and the scheduling and everything else. We know it doesn't happen. So I think as an industry, we need to really determine what that segmentation means and what we can do to serve all those segments where they want to be. Because, to answer your first question about cannibalization versus expansion, I think the answer is yes. There will be some elements of the business that are cannibalized, whether it's the business model or a certain way of doing business now. But overall, I think it's net positive, the investment that's happening right now.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Well, so one thing that has kind of been a standard characteristic of the traditional security market and the traditional security solution is the panel in the home, right? That the panel used to be the central control hub. Certainly the way that the security company is controlling the devices, right, and communicating the data right back to the monitoring center. Today, really, the hub can be anything in the home, right? It can be a panel, it can be a smart speaker, it can be a smart thermostat, right? Some smart thermostat brands have come out to kind of try and be the hub in the home. Does that now that sort of standalone smart home devices can act as that hub device, does that change the game for residential security and kind of the traditional approach to the market about what the hub is, in the home? And does it change the value proposition there? And maybe we can start with Brett and your take on that.
Yeah, look, my opinion is yes. I think we've always thought that notion that there's connectivity through a hub, and then there's interaction with that hub, so to speak. And what do you need for what purpose? The panel aspect, arm, disarm, home and away, those kinds of features and functions are in your pocket now, right? You have a smartphone. You don't really need a system an access point, if you will, into the system, into customizations in the home. If you have your smartphone, maybe we can do some of that on the TV. Maybe we can do some of that with a smart speaker going forward as well. But ultimately, I think from, and I haven't been there that long now, but from our interactions with the Comcast side, I think you can understand the level of connectivity a Comcast has into a home, what their capabilities may be able to bring to the table for many different IoT and smart security solutions. So, we're actively kind of thinking about how we can either make our hub into something more useful. We have a small hub today that connects to Wi-Fi, but we'd love to make it more purposeful. We'd love to get rid of it and use other products that you already have in the home. Some conversation around standardization of protocols is potentially necessary as we think about the easy ability to do it. But this goes back to something that Chris mentioned a little bit, and I've heard him talk about it before. The end user shouldn't know about a hub. They shouldn't care about it. They shouldn't have to deal with it. They shouldn't have to worry about it. And so however we can make it easier and more streamlined, that's the right solution, whether it's a hub from us or somebody else. That's more of the right answer.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you're right. The communications piece and the control piece and the hardware piece, if there needs to be hardware at all, really can be disaggregated at this point and aren't necessarily, all coming from the same place. Of course, the idea of the hub and having a control point also, to an extent, talks to a position of a company's kind of leverage in the home, right? With the panel anchoring the perhaps professional security monitor in the home. With a company like Comcast, you might be talking about the router, right? Just baking it right into that gateway, the Wi-Fi router. And of course, for the tech giants, might be those smart speakers. So let me also ask, Mike, how you see kind of these dynamics and the changing perhaps placement of that hub control place really impacting the security market.
I think what is important is kind of differentiate between some of the smart home functionality versus traditional security. While there's lots of devices coming into the home that can be a smart hub and offer that smart home, control your lights, control your thermostat, or even be lights and thermostats, there are extra levels of protection generally that are necessary at security. Now, entering consumers into that space and getting them to learn what's possible, I think can happen through any of these devices. Obviously, within Amazon, we have tens of millions of users with Echo devices out there, and bringing functionality like Alexa Guard and Guard Plus to them gives them peace of mind and security, whether it's detecting glass break or offering help services. But ultimately, we can then continue to offer more capabilities, because then what we can bring is battery backup, LTE backup, cellular backup through text messaging, layers and layers of security. So even if you have a power outage, even if you have an ISP outage, which happens every day, all day to consumers, you're still protected. And I think that's where there's will long-term remain a differentiation between anything as a hub and then true security-first products.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now, Mike, let me actually come back to you. One thing that we talked about in the introductory presentation was the fact that there are some interesting new channel partnerships happening. And I called out, the Ring partnership with Verizon in particular. Can you expand a little bit about, what innovative channel partnerships mean for, players like Ring, and how maybe you're trying to diversify how you get into the market?
Yeah, again, I think it starts and ends with the consumer and making it convenient for them and solving their problems, whether that's through pro channels and installer channels or, our recent partnership with Verizon. If you look at Verizon, a lot of people are very comfortable. It's their cell phone provider, and being able to have a one-stop shop to go and get a solution is something that's very powerful. You can go into a Verizon store, buy a Ring alarm kit, set it up right there in the store, get it configured, and it actually gets billed right to your Verizon bill. So it's a very deep integration that makes it, another way to be simple for the consumer. So for us at Ring and Amazon more broadly, it's all about partnerships and really trying to drive choice for the end consumer.
Matt, I'd love to give you the same opportunity because I called you out specifically as well and SimpliSafe during the presentation about new channel partnerships, and you've got the partnership with Reliant. Tell us a little bit about how you're thinking about these channel partnerships and maybe where you're looking next.
Yeah, no, and a quick plug for the Parks Connection Conference. We first met the Reliant leadership at the conference in San Francisco a year or two ago. So, but yeah, I think to build off of what Mike said, I think the partnerships that have sustained success and the ones that we're focused on are really focused on taking a customer-centric approach. And the ones that we think about and how we approach it is it making home security more accessible, or does the partner help educate the customer about DIY, or can it provide more value to the customer, this partnership? So as areas we think about around, for instance, DIY solutions have made security almost like a consumer electronics purchase in many instances. And as a result, channel partnerships with players like the Best Buys and the Costco's of the world, where consumers expect to find, the best technology offerings, is effective in an area we're growing. Also given how the concept of DIY still for many consumers is still so new, we think about working with partners who are seen as trusted advisors, whether it's for a customer's personal well-being, like our partnership with the AARP, or an advisor around the health of their home, like our partnership with Progressive Insurance. We think those will increasingly be effective. And then it's touched upon, and I think this is definitely where our Reliant partnership goes, and some of our partnerships with other insurers. But these types of partnerships help us deliver added value for the customer. The customer is winning by this, whether it's extra cost savings or extra functionality, or even that convenience Mike alluded to through these partnerships. So it'll definitely be an area that we, as long as it can benefit the customer, we'll continue to invest in.
Great. Well, so, thinking further about channel, of course, the traditional channel has been through the dealer network. And as I mentioned in the data I presented, actually quite a few dealers are offering both pro and DIY type offerings. So, Mark, to you, how are you guys engaged? First of all, is that surprising, or is that what you're seeing as well? And then how are you engaging the dealer network with kind of the variety of options, that are out there, and educating them on, the benefits of different types of solutions?
Yeah, I can't recall who said it earlier, but the dealers are going to sell the DIY products because that's what the customers are looking for, right? So the dealers are naturally going to evolve their business plans and gravitate towards that. So, for a brand like Abode, we're not really interacting with dealers just yet. We're currently looking at how to expand our channels to add security dealers. But for us, we really need to ensure that there's going to be enough of a value add for our customers, as well as the ability to generate a profit and add value for the dealer. So we're looking at things like revenue sharing or other programs that we can do to set up the dealer channel for success and continue to engage them. On the Nice and Tobaro side of our business, we're continuing to support that professional installer channel as we always have, by being really flexible. Currently in the current times, it's about working more closely with them remotely on training or support items. So if we're having any issues, or they're having any issues, we can virtually connect with them and work together to resolve the situations. But for Nice, dealers can certainly function as an extended sales team, whereas on the Abode side, we're relying on commerce channels currently.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you all for your insights. To wrap up our conversation, I want to get maybe one last take, maybe to end with Chris here. We know that DIY systems may be lower cost entry for consumers, but then there's all sorts of opportunities to add additional services on top, right? Whether that be security monitoring or cybersecurity or support systems, independent living, vehicle monitoring services, right? There's all sorts of different opportunities. What do you see as, particular use cases perhaps that rise to the top to maybe drive some ARPU on top of the, DIY security system sale?
Well, the obvious one is video, and I don't know that they're the same thing, right? We see video offers as a lead offer. In fact, just recently, Comcast, I believe, released their self-protection plan where an Xfinity internet subscriber can be can have 24/7 video recording for $10 a month, and so that's a DIY standalone that actually has an upgrade path to professional monitoring. On the flip side, I think that the market penetration for video itself, even as an add-on to an intrusion system, is a pretty compelling offer to end users. In fact, we see video trending more and more as being the lead interest over intrusion. I think beyond video, I think that there are a couple of things that we need to do. Again, as an industry, we've tried things like doing identity theft protection. We've tried things like we've chased a lot of things, but we have to figure out where the value is. What are we bringing? Because we have for too long allowed the manufacturers, and I know I've said this before, but the manufacturers in the industry to drive our innovation, and not the manufacturers today. I'm talking about GE, Honeywell, and back in the days where our industry did not get the R&D dollars that it needed, or the thought leadership to say, what do end users actually want, and can we distinctly offer that value? Because other people can sell add-on services as well. So I think we talked about partnerships. That's really important. I do think that aging in home and really there will be additional opportunities with this macro trend to work from home. I just think that we need to take it's a longer conversation, but we need to take a serious look at where we can provide value, whether that's in elderly aging at home, video solutions for children that are at home, or parents that are now turning their home into an office. I think that we're uniquely positioned because they've already given us their trust. And I think there's a lot of room for expansion there, but we need some thought leadership in that way, and I think there's a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we need to actually wrap up there. In fact, our very next session is going to be talking about independent living and caring for people in their homes. So that was a perfect segue, Chris. Thank you. And certainly your point's well taken, that obviously there's been a huge disruption this year, and the impacts of that we're all still going to be figuring out into the new year. And so I think we all expect the security market to continue to be sort of in flux in a healthy way, with all sorts of new options and services, continuing to come out. So thank you all very much for your insights, for sharing your time with us today, and for bearing with us with some technical difficulties. Thank you, guys.